Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the CouchScouts Podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper. Here with me is my co-host, Matt Jackson. How you doing tonight, Matt?
What's going on, man? It's been a crazy day, but we're enjoying life, man. We had VBS this week, so it's been long days, but everything's going well. Hope you are.
Yeah, absolutely. If people are watching and saying, hey, that's a different background than I usually see, I'm actually at my parents' house right now. Their church is having a vacation Bible school of their own, and they wanted us to come up and put our kids in there. So, no Matt Rupert this week. He's dealing with some personal stuff, and obviously we're recording at a different time. But hey, you know what? We're here. We're doing it for you guys. I'm excited to get into it.
The show goes on, right?
Yeah, the show must go on. So tonight we are continuing our series of players with the most to gain and the most to lose coming into the 2024 season. And so we're going to be using startup ADP from Dynasty Data Lab we're going position by position, discussing which players on your Dynasty rosters have the most to gain this season, value-wise, and the most to lose this upcoming season. So tonight we are going to be looking at the running back position. But before we jump all the way into it, I just wanted to take a second and let you guys know about our free Discord. So if you haven't checked that out, you got to get in there. It's completely free. The link to join will be in the show description on whatever podcast platform you're on. And it's totally free. It's a Discord, so it's a group chat. There's a bunch of guys in there that are just dynasty nuts like us, and we're in there all the time talking about, hey, I'm on the clock. Who should I pick? Hey, I've got this trade offer. What do you think? Should I take it? This news broke. How does this affect this player or that player? And so we're just in there talking shop all the time, helping people navigate their trades and their draft decision and all that stuff. So jump in there. It's a great group of people, and it's totally free. One thing that is not free, but is really cheap, is our rookie guide. For $10, you can pick up all of the research that we did on this rookie class. It's a 70-plus page PDF covering over 60 prospects with in-depth film breakdown, strengths, weaknesses, where we would take them, where we rank them, all that kind of stuff. So we did all the work for you, so you can come in and dominate your rookie draft. You can pick that up again at a link that'll be in the description on whatever podcast app you're listening on, and hopefully pick that up, dominate your rookie draft, and we appreciate you guys. So without any further ado, we're going to get into the show tonight. So first, we're talking about running backs with the most to gain heading into the 2024 season, and we each picked two. Although I chose to kind of cheat and pick a third as like an honorable mention, bonus mention, but we'll get there in a minute. But let's start with you, Jackson. Who is the first running back that you chose with the most to gain heading into 2024?
Yeah, so the first running back I chose is somebody that we spotlighted a little bit briefly last week, and that's Zamir Wright, the Raiders running back. He clocks in right now at a startup ADP as running back 23. We mentioned last week, but I just kind of want to reiterate, if there was somebody that came out of the draft and came out of free agency looking really, really good, it was Zamir White. I mean, everybody thought that the Raiders were gonna take somebody in the draft, and he left the draft as the RB1. Nobody really thought that was going to happen. They didn't sign anybody to really challenge him. So immediately you're looking at his price tag at RB23, and there's no reason this guy can't outperform a low-end RB2 status, especially when he's going to get the volume. Josh Jacobs is no longer on the team. They've shown commitment to be a volume type of team. They just ground and pound and just force feed carries to their RB1. And right now that's Zamir White. So you look at his price tag and what you can get him at right now. And he was one of the ones that immediately, when I was looking at startup ADP, jumped off the screen to me as somebody that was like, you can easily outperform RB23. And you're talking about somebody that has the potential, just purely based on situation, to be a high-end RB2, if not creep into that low-end RB1 type of territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we don't advocate for box score watching because often the film tells a deeper story than the box score. But sometimes it really is this simple. I mean, look, the last 4 weeks of the season when he was the starter, when Josh Jacobs was hurt. He handled over 70% of the snaps in 3 out of those 4 games. He handled 17 or more carries in all of those games, 20 or more carries in 3 out of the 4. And he was involved in the passing game. So he received in those 4 games target numbers: 4 targets, 1 target, 6 targets, 2 targets, which, is not a ton, but he was involved. And so fantasy wise, again, let's just run through the scores here. This is not deep analysis, guys. 17.5, 16.5, 15.6, 13.1. You will take those fantasy numbers, right? Like that's a plug and play with that kind of volume, week to week plug and play starter at just 24 years old. So think about how the dynasty community tends to overrate and overvalue age. Even if in your head you maybe know Zamir White is not a long-term answer, he's a 1 or 2 year rental, and so age shouldn't matter that much. If he comes out and puts up an RB1 fantasy season at 24 years old, I mean, just look at what happened with Kyren Williams' value this offseason, like where his ADP is. And I think, if Zamir White has that type of season, you could absolutely see him going in that Kyren Williams range this time next year. And Kyren Williams, he's a very high startup pick. Let me look. Now, this is probably even depressed. It was probably higher earlier in the offseason before they drafted Blake Corum. But you're looking at a guy who's dynasty RB9, Kyren Williams, and going in the 4th round of startup drafts. So that's way, way higher than what you're seeing out of Zamir White right now. And I think that's the kind of rise that you could see out of Zamir White in a best case scenario.
Yeah, and I think far too often we as the dynasty community are horrible about this, right? We're like, you look at that 24 years of age, you look at him as a 1 or 2 year option, and what do we want to do as dynasty managers? We want to build a team that can compete, years and years down the road, and you want those guys that are young, 20, 21 years old. You want those high value rookie picks, and people forget at the end of the day, what's the goal of fantasy football in a nutshell? It's to win a championship, right? That's and Zamir White is that guy that can win you a championship right now. And at the very least, that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was your first running back with the most to gain. And I actually chose a guy in a very similar ADP range. So you chose RB23. I chose RB22, and that is Javonte Williams. And, I think at this point, if you go and look up post-hype sleeper in the dictionary, you might see Javonte Williams' picture next to it, because this is a guy that, he came out rookie season splitting touches with Melvin Gordon. And so from a fantasy finish standpoint, you're talking about a guy that finished his rookie season as RB 17 in PPR leagues, which is actually, for a rookie, that's pretty good. And so RB 17 is a rookie, but where was his dynasty ADP? Was it RB 17? No, it was like RB 5. I don't remember. He got up. He got pretty high after his rookie season, because everybody just assumed, all right, they're going to move on from Melvin Gordon, and Javonte is going to be that bell cow guy. And we saw some flashes of great talent. And so everybody kind of crowned him the next big thing. Well, that sophomore season, he had a devastating, multi-ligament knee injury, ACL, MCL, the whole thing. And the dynasty value plummeted. And this was an injury. Now, when you have a clean ACL tear, and I'm not a doctor, but when you have a clean ACL tear, we've seen guys come back and be successful the very next season. That happened with Breece Hall this year. But when we've seen this multi-ligament tear, it always takes 2 years for the guy to look right. This happened with Saquon Barkley, right? His value was absolutely in the crater. Everybody left him for dead, said he's washed. And then he bounces in the second year after the injury. He comes back and kind of returns to form and recovers a lot of his dynasty value. So last year, Javonte finishes as RB 29 in PPR leagues. And everybody just drops him way down the board and thinking, I've even heard people say ridiculous stuff like, who's the Notre Dame back? Audric Estime, that Audric Estime is going to take his job. Are you kidding me?
No.
Like Blake Watson couldn't even get an invite to the combine, is going to take his job. No, like, look, Javonte, this is a bold prediction. I've even seen news reports lately suggesting that he could get released. I don't buy that. I think this year he's going to come back. He's going to finally look fully healthy again. He's going to put all the talent on display that everybody fell in love with to begin with. He's only 24 years old, and I think he's going to way outperform expectations this year. And I think he's a screaming buy right now, personally, especially with these kind of rumors that he could be released. I don't buy it. If that's presenting a dip in his value, go get Javonte Williams, because I really think this time next year he could be going multiple rounds higher in startup drafts. What do you think, Jackson?
Yeah, no, I like that call. I definitely feel more comfortable buying Javonte Williams at the price now versus the RB6 or 7 price that he was a couple seasons ago. You look at it. I don't know if you remember this play when he was playing for the Tar Heels. He had one play where he ran to the left side, like just absolutely bulldozed a guy, spun out of another tackle, and just like his yards after the contact was something that was just like really on display that play. And I'm thinking of that play specifically did him no favors for his dynasty ADP. Because after that play, everybody was like, oh, look what this guy can be. Right.
And he did it a bunch his rookie year too with the Broncos. I mean, he had so many highlight plays with breaking 4 or 5 tackles in one play. That's what made everybody fall in love with him. You're totally right.
So, I mean, that's who Javonte Williams is or was, and that's who I still think he is, right? He's still got that in his tank. And like you said, I mean, it takes a while when you got those multi-ligament injuries. You're not coming back the next season and doing what you were doing your rookie season. So at his current price right now at RB22, you're looking at somebody that's got the talent. I mean, we talked about Zamir White being a low-end RB1. I mean, Javonte Williams has all the talent in the world to be an RB1. If he rehabs from that injury, well, you're talking about a guy that is going to vastly outproduce RB22 status.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to the chat. Network says, howdy, Kings. Brian Ford says, good evening, gents. How's it going, guys? Appreciate y'all checking in and watching with us. Jackson, why don't you get in and tell us who is your second running back that you chose with the most to gain? And I'm going to go ahead and say we should have made rookies off limits for this because there's always a built-in uncertainty discount. But go ahead and tell us who your second guy is and why you picked him.
I got to admit, this one felt a little cheap. I can kind of see what you're talking about here a little bit. But when I was looking at the ADP, I was like, there's nobody on this list that's in this range that I'm looking at that screams more value than Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, you're looking at his dynasty ADP right now in startup drafts. He's going as RB40. And you're talking about a guy, his explosiveness, his change of direction, his top end speed are all, I mean, we graded him in our rookie guide as elite in those areas. So you're talking about a guy that, yes, he's going to be in a timeshare with Josh Jacobs. Yes, Josh Jacobs commands a lot of touches. He is a much better running back than A.J. Dillon is, in my opinion. They've shown that they're not afraid to do a split backfield. And you're looking at Marshawn Lloyd as somebody that's got all the talent in the world to, when he gets a carry, he doesn't need many carries to be effective with his carries. I mean, he's got the juice, he's got the speed, he's got the explosiveness to score from anywhere on the field. We noted that multiple times in our film review of him. So you're talking about a guy that's going as RB3. I mean, he's going super, super late. It does feel kind of cheap, right? Because, I mean, somebody that could vastly improve his status. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd is a top candidate for that because, I mean, I think I looked at it, and Josh Jacobs' contract, they might have an out after 2 years for sure, and there's a small out after 1 year. Do they move on from Josh Jacobs sooner than they think they did? And Marshawn Lloyd becomes that guy. There's some uncertainty there, like you mentioned, but there's no greater buy right now. And I've been getting him in rookie drafts absolutely everywhere. There's no greater buy in my mind than Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, getting him in the third round of rookie drafts most of the time for me feels like stealing. I agree with you. I think he's an incredibly talented back, and Matt LaFleur always uses a committee. I mean, even when Aaron Jones was there, we're always saying free Aaron Jones because Jones is kind of, splitting carries with guys, whether that be an A.J. Dillon or before that a Jamal Williams. And so I think you're going to see Josh Jacobs be kind of that A.J. Dillon, Jamal Williams, like the banger in the offense, maybe a little bit more involved in that. And the guy that's getting those like passing down touches and change of pace work that Aaron Jones was getting, I mean, Marshawn Lloyd actually reminds me a good bit of Aaron Jones in terms of his run style. So I think you're right. I think he can make plays happen on more limited touches. I think he's going to get higher value touches potentially. And, Josh Jacobs is a guy that for years, I even thought about putting him in the most to lose category, because even though they just signed him to this, it looks like what's a long-term contract, they can really get out of it after next year or the year after without a huge dead cap hit. And he was one of the least efficient running backs in the league last year. So he's a guy that needs volume. And if he's going to be splitting and in a committee with a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, I don't know that Josh Jacobs is going to be able to do what he's been doing.
He's not going to get the value the volume that he got with the Raiders. I mean, that volume's not coming.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think RB12 is a little too high for Josh Jacobs for me, and I think RB40 is definitely a screaming value for Marshawn Lloyd. For my second running back that I chose with the most to gain, and again, we were within one running back of each other, and you chose RB40. I chose RB41, and that's Austin Eckler, according to ADP. I mean, 41.
That's crazy
for Eckler. Like, I know, and it's you normally think of when you're doing a show like this, who has the most to gain value wise. You don't think of an old guy like Eckler gaining value. You think, oh, it's just all downhill for this guy. But I mean, you're talking about a guy last year. He finished as RB26 even while missing a huge chunk of the season.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, like, even while missing a huge chunk of the season, he's RB26. The year before that, he's RB1. Before that, RB2. So, I mean, RB41. And listen, I know that there were times last year that he looked, quote unquote, washed. He looked like he didn't have the juice anymore. But you also got to remember that he had a high ankle sprain early in the season. And usually guys miss 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain and then don't look right even when they do come back. That's historically, we know that's true. And so does it make sense that Austin Eckler looked a little washed when he came back from a high ankle sprain ahead of schedule? Yeah, to me, that makes sense. It's an explanation that makes sense. And so could he be washed? Sure, maybe. And if he is at RB41 in the 13th round of a startup, it's not really going to kill you anyway. But could it be that he wasn't actually washed and he really was just hurt? And now he's coming into a running back room where, like, yeah, he's going to be splitting some touches with Brian Robinson, but he's going to get the passing down work in PPR. Like, that's gold. I can't imagine a world where he finishes RB41. I really can't. So, I think normally, I mean, you're looking at Christian McCaffrey, same age, and I'm going to talk more about him in a minute. He's RB2, and you got Eckler all the way down here at RB41. If Eckler returns to form a little bit, if he has a high-end RB2 season or even a low-end RB1 season, how much higher do you – I mean, he could go up 8 rounds of startup.
Yeah.
Jump. I mean, like
easily. And let's not pretend the Antonio Gibson truthers are not going to like me for this, but Antonio Gibson is not going to steal many carries away from.
He's in New England right now. He's a Patriot. Yeah, Antonio Gibson's not even there anymore. It's Brian Robinson and it's Eckler.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about somebody. I mean, Eckler's far and away the better running back on that roster. And
agreed.
What do you do? What's the one thing coaches time and time again do with a rookie quarterback? And you got a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels there. You lean on the running game. You don't ask your rookie quarterback to go out there most of the time. Now this might be different, but most of the time you don't go out there and ask them to make 40 throws a game. You're kind of leaning into that running game. And even when they are passing the ball, Austin Eckler is a phenomenal PPR back. So you look at, I'm looking at it right now. Look at who he's going around. I mean, he's getting drafted with Roman Wilson, Luke Musgraves, Raheem Mostert, Khalil Shakir, Troy Franklin, Josh Downs, Jalen Jones, Chase Brown. I mean,
even running backs going above him, like Devin Singletary? What are we what are we doing here? Chase Brown? Like really Chase Brown over Austin Eckler? We're doing that? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So I think
there was nobody in the 13th round of a startup draft, and you were going to find more upside in than Austin Eckler at that point. It's not going to happen.
So let's move along here, and let's kind of. I'm going to take a break before we transition into talking about our running backs with the most to lose. I forgot my honorable mention. My honorable mention, guys. Okay, so a running back with the most to gain that didn't make my top two, J.K. Dobbins at RB 47. He's basically free. And look, the reason I didn't choose him as one of my two is because history is very much against guys coming off of Achilles tears.
Yeah,
but I think because that Chargers running back room is so wide open, because he was brought in by a guy like Greg Roman, who has history with J.K. Dobbins, and the talk out of camp is that he looks healthy and is getting his explosive in a spec. And I know we've been there, we've done that with J.K. Dobbins. He just keeps getting hurt, but I mean, he has nothing to lose at RB 47 price tag and everything to gain. If he comes out and leads that Chargers backfield and looks like his old self at his age, like. This is a guy who could legitimately gain 10 rounds of startup ADP by this time next year if things strike right this year. So I had to at least give an honorable mention to J.K. Dobbins.
I love that. I hate it so much. I hate the career trajectory that J.K. Dobbins' career.
I know. I want him to.
I wanted him to be good so bad.
So let me take a quick break before we talk about our running backs with the most to lose. And I just want to shout out dynastynerds.com. So Dynasty Nerds, you've heard us talk about it. I'm the film room coordinator. I believe the film room is the best resource on the internet for you to go and do your own research to prepare for your rookie draft. I think the subscription price is worth it just for the film room. But there's so much more there. There's a trade calculator. There's a league analyzer that helps you figure out what other teams in your league, what positions they're strong at or weak in, helps you put together trades. I mean, there's an extra podcast. There's
something that we don't talk about a lot. They've got a nifty little tool on there that you can see your market share for all these guys that you're drafting, which I think is awesome. So
yeah, like what percentage of your leagues do you own this guy in? And yeah, so lots and lots of great tools, worth every penny. I was paying for it myself before they hired me. And so obviously I get a free subscription now for being an employee. But I was paying for it. I thought it was worth every dime. You can get that for 15% off using promo code COOP. And we encourage you to check out dynastynerds.com. So let's get into the second half of our show here. And players, running backs specifically, with the most to lose heading into the 2024 season. And I'll start with you, Jackson. Who is your first running back with the most to lose?
Yeah, so admittedly, I'm a little worried to talk about this guy because I know we're gonna bicker over this a little bit. But I chose Miami's running back Devin Achane, RB8 overall right now. Look, do I love his talent? Absolutely. Do I think he's a phenomenal player? 100%. Here's the problem with Devin Achane. Okay, you look at it right now, and that room is so immensely crowded. Okay, you've got Raheem Mostert, who, for better or worse, is taking cut touches away from him. You've got a guy in Jalen Wright who we didn't really like in the film, but he's still there in the backfield. He's got a skill set that they can utilize with his speed. You've got guys on the outside and Tyreek Hill, who's coming back. He's not retiring. You've got Jalen Waddle. There are so many mouths to feed on that offense, and there are so many running backs that are going to demand touches. Look, can Devin Achane take a 1 yard carry and take it 99 yards for a touchdown? Yeah, he's got that speed. He's got that explosiveness in him. But when you look at his price tag as RB8 right now, for me, that seems really pricey. He can perform like that, but I'm not willing to take the chance at RB8 when I can get a wide receiver or somebody else that I know has got a clearer path to immediate success. There's a lot of unknown with Devin Achane, and that worries me a little bit. But I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, nothing like a little spirited debate, right? No, I love Devin Achane. And while I'm not like super bullish on, yes, he's a total buy at his price tag, because it is expensive. RB8 is expensive. And oftentimes the players with the most to gain also are the most to lose. But I actually thought about putting Achane in my most to gain category because you're talking about a guy that even though he's already all the way up at RB8, he's still 2 full rounds below Jahmyr Gibbs in startups. And I think they're pretty similar as prospects. I had Gibbs as my RB2 in last year's class, and I had Achane as my RB3. And they come in and Gibbs had more total points over the season. He was a little healthier, but Achane on a points per game basis was RB3 in the entire NFL, 18.2 points per game. I mean, the upside that he has presented and shown, and the hand and glove fit in that offense, the skill set. I loved him as a prospect. He absolutely showed out as a rookie. If he'd have stayed healthy the whole season, his ADP already would be a good bit higher than it is, I think. So I think if he can just stay healthy and come in and play the way I know he's capable of playing at his age, at 22 years old, I think you're going to see him going in like round 2 of startups next year as a clear top 3 to 5 running back. I thought about putting him in the most to gain category, but I get that like he's undersized and he's been hurt, and I get your concerns, and it could certainly happen that he does take a dip by this time next year, but I also just see such a good young player.
I do want to put it out there. He's a phenomenal player, and I love Devin Achane as a player, and I think if he can prove, like if he can prove me wrong, he probably will prove me wrong. He's got the potential, like you said, to be in that Jahmyr Gibbs type of situation. There's a lot of unknown, and there's just that offense it's got so many playmakers on it. And for better or worse, like I don't like Jalen Wright. He's still going to command touches, I think. So
I don't know if he will rookie season. Honestly, like I think they brought him in. They prefer they don't see Achane as a full complement 25 touch kind of guy, which is probably smart at his size. And so they like having him in there with Mostert as a compliment, but Mostert's 32 years old. And so I think they brought Jalen Wright in there to eventually take the Raheem Mostert share of that running back room. If he can develop into that. But I think rookie year, it's going to be Achane and Mostert. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Jalen Wright on the field.
That's fair.
But, we'll see what happens. So let's continue on. I'll share my first running back that I chose with the most to lose. And this was actually kind of a painful one for me. I hinted at it earlier, and I chose Christian McCaffrey at RB2. He is right next to, he goes one pick in this ADP we're looking at. He goes one pick ahead of Breece Hall. So even if you say, okay, Breece Hall is RB2 and CMC's RB3, that's still really high. That's a second round startup pick. And you're talking about one of my favorite players of all time. I am a huge Christian McCaffrey fan. I'm a diehard Panthers fan. So he was the face of our franchise for years. He just seems like a solid dude. He's so fun to watch. He has won me many a fantasy championship. So you're going to have a hard time finding anybody that loves Christian McCaffrey more than I do. And I do think he still has some good years left in the tank. And I'm not even necessarily advocating for selling him. But what does he have to gain? He's not getting any higher than second round startup. He's not getting any higher than RB2 or 3. He only has room to go down. And, if he goes out and has another RB1 season, difference maker, championship winner, the best he could do is maintain his current value because he's still going to be 29 heading into next offseason. Like you could argue he could do what he did last year again and still lose value heading into next offseason. But what if he doesn't do what he did last year? What if he gets hurt again? What if he just takes a small step backwards and, is just, he's still a fantasy RB1, but what if he's RB8 instead of RB1 overall? Yeah. And he's a 29-year-old. Like I just think the roof or the floor could fall out from under this guy at any moment. And so this is not me saying to sell Christian McCaffrey, because I think if you're a contender, you've got to keep him and you got to ride him and you got to, he's a difference maker. He's a put you over the top type of player. But you have got to be honest with yourself and evaluate, where am I actually at? because if you are a middling team, if you're a pretender instead of a contender, that value could fall out at any given moment. He has nowhere to go but down. The floor could fall out from under him. He could be 10 rounds lower and start up ADP next year if things go bounce the wrong way, and so, I mean, again, just look at Eckler, who we just talked about. He was RB1 year before last, overall RB1. Now he's RB41 in Dynasty ADP. It can happen that quick when you're that age. And so I think people need to be aware of that with Christian McCaffrey. As much as it hurts me to say it, he is the running back with the most to lose by far heading into the 2024 season.
And you hate it because he's such a good player. But, I mean, you're looking at it. I mean, even if he goes out and has just a phenomenal season, I'm not taking him above Bijan Robinson, and I don't know if I'm taking him above Breece Hall. So he's stuck where he is no matter what he does. And like you said, the floor can fall out from under him, and you never know what's going to happen. I mean, these guys, they can be phenomenal, but age eventually catches up with you. And I love that comment by Brian that he just posted, right? I don't know that betting on a 28-year-old running back, even a great one, and that offense to repeat that usage, volume, production, and health is a great idea. Like, it's not, right? Like, I mean, as much as it pains us to say, like, yeah, eventually the floor falls out from under these guys, and it happens to even the best ones. Yes, it's even going to happen to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, for sure. Eventually it's going to happen. And you'd rather be a year early than a year late. So, Jackson, who was your second running back with the most to lose heading into 2024?
So, yeah, my second running back with the most to lose, and I swear, guys, I'm an Eagles fan. I know I've
You did Jalen Hurts last week, and now you're doing Saquon.
2 Eagles 2 weeks in a row, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with the ADP, right? So Saquon Barkley is my guy with the most to lose. He's going in as RB7 right now. I mentioned it last week, and I'm going to mention it again. That offensive line without Jason Kelce is not going to be as good as they were last year. You've got mouths to feed in that offense, and Dallas Goedert. You got Devontae Smith, and you got A.J. Brown. Saquon Barkley is a phenomenal talent. He's a great PPR back, but we are notorious every single year of using an RB by committee approach. We historically do not feature one running back. We haven't for years. And I think Jason Kelce, I was watching his podcast, and when we signed Saquon Barkley, his one piece of advice for Saquon Barkley was don't go down at the 1 yard line, which I think is solid advice, right? Because if you go down at the 1 yard line, you know whose number is getting called. You know who's getting that touchdown. It's not Saquon Barkley. It's Jalen Hurts.
True.
So you look at his touchdown upside. I don't think his touchdown upside is there. I don't think he's going to get nearly the yards he needs to sustain that RB7 type of upside. And you look at the guys that are going above him, right? Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne, and Jonathan Taylor. I mean, can he go above some of those guys? Yeah, he has the potential to climb above maybe two of those guys, and we're going to talk about one here in a second. But how much further is Saquon Barkley going to raise? I mean, in that same case of Christian McCaffrey, he's got way more to lose in my mind than he's got to gain.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to pick on the old guys, and Saquon is not old yet, but he's going to be 28 at this time next year, and that always just by nature makes a dynasty running back. I mean, people are smart enough now. They know the age cliff. They know at this point that he's basically at it, and next year he'll be past it, and that you're playing with fire, trading for him. And so you're going to see his trade value. And I don't know where he'll be startup ADP next year, but you're definitely going to see he's going to be a hard player to trade away. And, you know, especially if that production dips. You're also talking about an offense that historically just doesn't, at least with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, they haven't thrown to the running back.
Yeah.
At all. So, I think it's definitely he's got more room to go down than to go up. So I'll agree with you on that. I think he could be a good, productive player that can help you win a championship this year. But I'd be surprised if his value, if he does any better than just treading water at this point next year. So, I'm going to get into my second running back with the most to lose, and this will be kind of our last guy that we talk about on the show here tonight. And this might be a little bit of a spicy one. I tried to stay away, and I just did Christian McCaffrey, who was like classic picking on the old guy. But I wanted to pick a younger guy who still has the potential to lose a lot of value. And I chose Jonathan Taylor, RB5, startup ADP, going in round. Let me take a look. Round 3, startup ADP, RB5 overall. I mean, that's a hefty price. And for what you've gotten at that price for the last few years, it's been disappointing. Let's be honest. I mean, all the reasons and excuses or whatever you want to call it are there. Since he had that RB1 overall finish, which, by the way, was a historically low RB1. Like, if other guys that year, Derrick Henry, if he had been healthy, if Christian McCaffrey had stayed healthy, like, Jonathan Taylor wouldn't have been RB1 overall. He kind of lucked into it in some ways. He had a very good season. Don't get me wrong. He averaged, I believe it was like 22.5 points per game that year. That's an absolute difference maker on your roster. He was young. It made sense to fly him up the dynasty rankings. But for the last few years, he has lived off of that 2021 hype. And 2021 at this point is a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, there's been injuries, there's been contract disputes, all of that kind of stuff. But, I mean, at some point, if he has another disappointing season for any reason, and he is on a team with a rushing quarterback who is going to steal rushing touchdowns from him. And, there's factors. I just think if you come into a third season in a row of disappointing, last 2 years, RB 33 in 2022, RB 33 in 2023, and an RB5 ADP. And he's 25. He's going to be 26 next year. So you're looking at a guy that, again, he's not old, but you're not really viewing him as super young anymore either. And if he's 3-4 years removed from being a real difference maker on your dynasty team, I mean, his rookie season, he averaged, I think it was 17 or so fantasy points per game. Then he had the monster boom sophomore year. And then the next 2 years, it's not just that he finished RB 33 overall, because, you could say, okay, well, there's missed games in there or whatever. What's his average points per game? Well, one of those years, it was like 13 point something. And then this past year, it was 16 something. So he's not been he's been a solid running back, but he's only really been a difference maker on your fantasy team that 1 year.
Yeah.
So if he comes out this year and puts up 15 fantasy points per game, I would view that as a disappointment at an RB5 price tag. And I just wonder how long people are going to stay patient, how long people are going to continue to give him all the excuses. Because I think another disappointing season, and you're going to see him plummet in terms of ADP. People are going to get frustrated with him. So, Jonathan Taylor is a running back, I think, that has a lot to lose coming into the 2024 season if he doesn't ball out again.
Yeah, I'm forming a Jonathan Taylor. I was hurt by Jonathan Taylor fan club on Twitter. I'm going to because I've had him on several dynasty rosters, and the price that you always have to pay for Jonathan Taylor has never been the what you've gotten out of it. I feel like it's always, you always leave with a little sour taste in your mouth, and I have for the last 2 years. So support group, Ryan. Yes, thank you for that. I was looking for those words. I can't remember what it was. So
I've been hurt by Jonathan Taylor support group. There you go. We need to start that channel in our Discord, I think. Good. But
that room is next to the Kyle Pitts one.
Right next to the Kyle Pitts room. Yeah, that's right. So I think that'll about do us for this show. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. So some big news I hadn't mentioned is that we are on way more podcast platforms now. So before you could only watch us on YouTube or listen on Apple. Now you can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. I mean, a ton of different places. And so if you listen on a different platform and you still can't find us on there, reach out, send us a message. We'll see if we can get added to it. But we are available to be listened to in a lot more places now. And so hopefully that makes it more convenient. If some of you guys were like, hey, I primarily use Spotify, but you're not on there. Well, we got you covered. So whatever podcast app you're using, leave us a 5-star review. It helps people find the show. We're growing. We really appreciate it. And as we log off, Jackson, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at DevyMatt. If you have any questions, anything for the show you want us to talk about, make sure to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find me at CouchScouts FF on Twitter /X. And you can find us at Couch Scouts on YouTube or any of your other podcasting apps. Just look for Couch Scouts. No space, just Couch Scouts. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.